like sushi and sake, look him up, visit him, and he will drink you under the table.
Absolutely drink you under the table.
Very good sake.
So, if you can, turn to page 121 in your book. And what I'm hoping we can do is, like I said, just read a section aloud and we'll kind of go around and, if you prefer not to read, that's okay. You don't have to. But we would like to hear kind of an array of voices. And I'm happy to start. And then afterwards, I'd like to talk a little bit about, what does a serial poem feel like? How is it different than, say, some of the other poems that we've read that, are of the page or a couple page of variety? And also talking about what is Hamill saying about habitations and why is it 11 parts? Why does this poem need to be as long as it is, right? And what is it getting at? But I'll start. Habitations for Ian Boyden. 1. Earth. Orange alpine lichen, slowly digesting stone. Black earth. Red earth. Brown earth. Icy dust. Canyons carved through centuries by water and ice. Stone canyons. Mountains thrust up by shifting continents across the river. The great trees bend in the wind. The living are the habitations of the dead. How small is a man?
Two, how small is the man who reads the stones and listens to the whispers of the poplars? How large is the heart that measures the heart of a man with a handful of earth? How much hope and sadness is a man with a handful of earth and a heart that unfolds in the moonlight? Listen closely to the stars, to the flutter of nighthawk wings, to the silence in the moonlight. The Susurrus River tells its secrets, and the great trees shiver.
3. The great trees shiver, and the river is laughter, and stones are polished, and rolling when the river rises. The patience of stone, a congress of trees, the witness of the moon, if only human emotion could be found in the wings of this world. Even the river runs out of time and drowns in a desert or empties into an ocean.
4. An ocean of time, vast seas of memory. Detritus contains the seeds of beauty. He dragged from the river an ancient cedar log, half petrified, and used it to bind a book. From shark tooth, cuttlefish, and fossilized earbone of whale, pigments for ink. From stone, the soul of stone, earth from earth, transformed, transfixed. From thistle and feather, a made thing, and yet it is an organism. It has a life. I say the trees listen, and even soil has mind.
5. Soil has a mind that legislates the trees. Each grape on the vine, and the trees and wine define the changing light that burns inside the mind. Roots of tribal memory burn in solitude, in the vast unknowing of this known world. Gneiss, shale, sheared marble, schist, granite, black coal compressed into diamond clarity. The whale's ear bone, the great tree blown down, each turning to stone, ground into powder for ink. 100,000 years in one small stone. A feather is a magical thing. And what does it mean?
6. What does it mean when one says the stately poplar or the noble pine? Scrub oak and loblolly, cedar, aspen and elm, each has its poet with adjective and rhyme. Because the river, we like to believe, flows through us, and the more noble the tree, straighter our spines. Down through Harakan to 200 feet through layers of basalt below the sea. I drilled to tap a river in the earth, a vein, water for a home of cedar and spruce. Holy the water, holy the wood.
7. Holy these woods, reclaiming the earth, rich in detritus, becoming soil. Holy the garden, its river of stones, its moss, lilies, and lace-leaf maples. Should trees have standing, is the cassura aroused by the arousal of its new leaves? Its blood surges. Let the stones tell it, let the river sing it again. Listen closely to the silence, listen to a language not our own.
8. Not our own, this earth. For us, only the sacrament of its fruitfulness and the great mystery, and the mystery of our passing. The tallest trees bend, feathers in the wind, and we marvel at the sound of water in the moonlight. Not ours, this mystery we enter, this strange habitation. The tide rises, the river and the trees, the stones and the man abide. Tasting the wine, terroir, is tasting the earth and sun, tasting the fish, is breathing the sea. My brother, the blind poet, uses his ears to see. High overhead, the Southern Cross, the river of heaven, Ursa the Bear.
9. We drift in the river of heaven, under the great bear, or beneath the cross in a boat of dreams. We drift in our boat of dreams, above the earth and rarely touch it, unless it comes tumbling down. And yet the trees bear us up into the world, the rains cleanse us, and we eat from clay, all sacrament and abundance. Before we return to clay, to earth and stone, gone like the cry of the thrush, everything devoured and reborn.
Devouring and reborn. The earth endures. Here was shadows of bedding trees, rippled on moonlit water. There is a world at peace. Indifferent towards our boat of dreams, our plated of temporal desire. This time is measured only by centuries of ice and fire, and by what winds might bring. Gazing up at these same stars that inspired the artists of last cultures, the great one, the mystery that is a hunger in the soul, the bison gone, and the mastodon, the butterfly that rode the wind to Mexico and back, the little bird that sang the dawn, all devoured and reborn.
Okay. 11. Devoured and needing to be reborn, the hungry seek a master. Making the paper, grinding ink, dipping the brush, the master says, draw the sound of the breeze in the pines, and smiling says, don't be foolish enough to draw trees. In the mind of a Buddha, not even a flower, Shiva the maker, Shiva the destroyer. At the summit of a pass to the Alps, high above timberline, I knelt at the foot of a glacier and peered down 1,000 feet, at granite boulders in a creek, and for a moment knew this ancient earth, orange alpine lichen, slowly devouring stone.
Any initial thoughts or comments about this poem when you read it the first time? I know many of you read it prior to coming today. So, what do you notice? What do you wonder about this? Yeah.
My main thought, reading it first, was how he weaves the sections together by whatever words are in the last line of the section. He picks them up in the first line of the next section. How small is a man? Section 2. How small is the man? And the great trees shiver. Section 3. And the great tree shiver. And that one, into an ocean, and for an ocean of time. And on, and it weaves this poem together in sound and thought. And then the last line of the poem, the orange alpine lichen slowly devouring stone. That's the first line of the poem. Earth, orange alpine lichen, slowly digesting stone. So he has this cycle of life going on and on and on, and it's woven kind of beautifully together.
Yeah, I definitely like how he does always use the last line of the section before to start the next one, just because the transition makes it easier to connect things from one thing to another. And I really like how in the end he does that last line because it just ties back to the beginning, which is just like an aha.
Why do you think he says devoured and digested? Why is the sort of switch?
I didn't think that far.
What do you think? Were you gonna say something, Ashay?
No, I didn't really have an answer to that. It's just something I noticed. I wondered, like, maybe it could be just trying to use different words. I don't know.
There are different parts in a process, right? Devouring something often is the beginning, and digesting is that other part. But devouring comes at the end, and digestion comes at the beginning, which is an interesting version of that. Or maybe we're not starting at the beginning; we're starting in the middle or something.
I also noticed repetition of the word like devouring. So like obviously in the end, the beginning, and then on page 126, it's beginning of section 11, he uses it again. And then I also like the repetition of the reference of the whale. Like I don't know exactly where, but it's on section 4 on the bottom. It says, from the shark tooth, the cuttlefish, and the fossilized ear bone of the whale, pigments for ink. It's kind of talking about what you said about that Japanese artist.
Ian.
Yes,
The
Ian
pigments.
Boyd.
Someone online said that places that are different but are also connected, that's sort of how that technique is working, is right. How do you connect these different places? Through language is one, I think, that this person's noticing.
Well, I thought it was interesting that Barry brought up that the poet's subject is time. And then later we read this poem, which we planned in advance to read, maybe not connecting necessarily with what Barry was going to say, but organically it emerged as a sort of a theme. The time is the poet's subject. So how does, and Sam on some level recognizes this, whether he knows it directly or whether he just assumes it. And what kind of time is Sam asking to be judged by? He's judging by the time it would take that a stone has. Measured by Stone is the name of one of his books, as a matter of fact. And as I hear this, by the way, the reading was incredibly beautiful.
Yeah.
To hear it in so many different voices was really a treat, and it really shows you that poetry is like a glove, and then you can see it there, sitting there, waiting for winter again, or you put your hand in it and you wiggle it around and it comes to life. Poetry is like that when you read it out loud. So time, a stone for me, and when I hear this, I wonder if it's like Sam's totem animal, the stone, because it kind of has that feel in it. And then when he's going to the trees and he's talking about being straightened up in one of the later ones, I forget exactly how he worded it, but we look to straightening the spine. We look to it as a matter of integrity. Is this guy is he straight? Is he standing up? The staff, and that's the American Medical Association logo. It comes from Asclepius, and it's a staff with two snakes going around it, and that staff represents integrity, right? And so it's very interesting that Sam is looking for models for his own integrity. He's looking to nature. So there's some really interesting things which I learned from your hearing of it. Probably may not have happened in the same way had we three read it. Interesting.
I'm wondering if there isn't two kinds of time he's dealing with. It's cosmological time, which we will never understand because the rock will outlast us. But it's also going to turn to the dust that created it, so you get that circle. Then there's the human time, which has a beginning and an end. So I think the only reason you can write a poem like this is to know them.
When you are in a sweat lodge ceremony that many of the native peoples of this continent do, when they bring in the hot rocks, they brush them with sage or sweetgrass and say, "Thank you, grandfather." They're calling these rocks grandfather because they've been around longer than us, so all that they've been able to absorb can inform us. And a lot of indigenous people believe that mountains are repositories, they're like libraries, because they've taken the vibes of all these experiences that have happened here before the settlers came, and all through 5,000, whatever, 10,000 years of indigenous habitation of this continent.
And we got some of that in the Levertop poems about Mount Rainier.
It's interesting to look at stones as grandfathers, which indigenous people do.
One thing I noticed about being in the desert and the north are both the same. You know what I'm talking about? In the winter, where I come from, if you're not properly equipped, you'll die within 10 minutes. If you're in the desert, you walk out, you could die in 10 minutes. So it's really interesting how we as humans and as writers, etc., are in this condition of nature, which is pretty incredible, and it means we have to be incredibly adaptable in order to live in it. And I think, and revere it in a sense through the poem, or to acknowledge its huge energy and strength and beauty. And, I mean, we don't really need religion, given that sort of sense of how things work. That's what I kind of get, in a general sense, what I get out of that poem.
Kind of a cycle of life type vibe, where it's
Yeah.
not like Lion King, but like, you're born, you live, you die. It's kind of telling that story through earth and through stone, because it does outlast us, which is unfortunate, but I kind of get that from it.
I really like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that the line that I'm still like stuck on, and that I just can't like get out of my head, is the living are the habitations of the dead, and I'm not even totally sure like what that means. I haven't like thought it through all the way, but it's just such a, I don't know, there's just something about it that really sticks in my mind.
Does it mean they live in us? We live
Yeah.
in them. They live in us.
Because the dead prey upon us.
Yeah.
What do you guys think that means? I think it's an interesting thing to unpack, because there's lines that don't pull me out of a poem but draw me back in. And I think that's a great one. What do you think that means? The living are the habitations of the dead.
Maybe we're like living on the dead, because like all our dead go underground, and like, you know, this absorbs whatever's left of them, and like we kind of build upon what they created before.
It's interesting.
That's good.
Well, I was gonna say also there was another like little stanza that I really liked that kind of went back, touched based on that cycle idea. It's in the 5th section. It says, "Soil has a mind that legislates the trees, each grape on the vine, and the trees and wine define the changing light that burns inside the mind." So what I kind of pull from that is like, it's kind of like connecting everything. So like the soil creates the trees, and then the trees or whatever, the plants create the grape on the vine and whatever, and then it comes down to the changing light that burns inside the mind. So it's kind of what we perceive, what we see, what we interact with. It's kind of interesting.
Consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to get back to the question, because I think that's one way to interpret it. Is that, and you go to Chief Seattle's speech, and he said that he knew that the white men the settlers were taking over, and he said, when my tribe is just a memory, you'll never forget that you're not alone. You will be on the I forget exactly how he worded it, but in a very profound way. So in that way, absolutely. But also in a way, it is that our genetics are informed by all the lives of our ancestors. And when they were marked profoundly by hunger or poverty or any number of things, that affects us until we recognize that thought pattern and we change it in ourselves. And there was this great quote I came across by Bruce Lipton, who's a cellular biologist, and he said that perception is awareness shaped by belief. Beliefs control perception. Rewrite beliefs and you rewrite perception. Rewrite perception and you rewrite genes and behavior. I am free to change how I respond to the world, so as I change the way I see the world, I change my genetic expression. We are not victims of our genes, we are masters of our genetics, which gets back to the personal mythology thing that I was talking about. So I think that, the dead are inside of us, it's our ancestors. And you are their best hope, right? Or maybe your sister or brother are their best hope, but let's just assume you're an only child and you're the one who they have to live through, and they experience the world through you. I believe that Sam might be alluding to that in part as well. Here's a guy who was given up for adoption by his father, an illiterate fry cook for a carnival. A carny, really, Sam's dad. And he said, I can't read, I want this kid to have a chance. So not only does Sam learn how to read, first of all, gets adopted by a Mormon family, very religious, who then abuses him, kicks the shit out of him, and says it's for God or whatever, so gives him a long-lasting distrust of religion. But then he learns not only English and becomes a poet, but learns several different languages, Chinese, Japanese, and it's translated, Basho, Narrow Road to the Interior, and other amazing works. And some of his translations are the standard in the English language. So how he shifted this genetics and something in his biological father who knew, I'm not the guy to raise this kid. And maybe it turned out pretty good in this example. So really interesting to bring in Sam's own personal mythology and to look at how he expresses things.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about trying to think about the context and sort of, especially with poems, and how it can help you read, just knowing a little background on that person, because oftentimes, there's so much in there that it's hard to sort of unpack. Even like just one line right there, you can sort of spend a whole time focusing on that one too. That's great. Any other things that you're noticing, like Zane was sort of thinking, there's just something about this line that I'm wondering about, and what other people think. Do you have other lines or things that you came across that sort of stopped you, but also made you wonder, what does this mean? You got something?
Well, it
Sorry.
connected roots of tribal memory burn in solitude in the vast unknowing of this known world. But it's the ancestors' roots of tribal memory.
Kind of what you're saying. Anna, what were you going to say?
I think it's interesting how he talks about like how small is the man. Like he considers like humans really small, but then reading the poem it doesn't make us feel small. Kind of empowers us. So like it says like, but how large is the heart that measures the heart of a man with a handful of earth? This is like a handful of earth, like the whole poem. Yeah, I thought that was.
How do you think it makes us, because it thinks oftentimes poems about nature are about sort of how you should be in awe of nature, or even thinking about contemporary photographs of nature sometimes, whether it's not so much contemporary, but Ansel Adams and things like that. It's like, behold nature, and it makes you feel like this little person. But how does the poem, do you think, make you feel large, which I think Judith was echoing too? How does it do that? I don't know.
Well, I think that we feel just, I feel just part of this, vast hymn of the whole earth. And so, we enlarge to nature rather than we're so little and nature is so big. I think because it puts us as part of it, and part, again, of understanding some of the mystery of life.
I think it makes us feel grateful that we're connected to this kind of environment, I guess. Just because, I don't know. I mean, it still makes us feel like we should appreciate and be in awe at nature, but I don't know. I also think it integrates us that we're still a part of nature as well. We contribute to something.
Yeah. Like in the poem, the way he talks is yet the trees bears us up into the world, and he uses us, and he incorporates us into nature.
But we have to realize that a human being is saying this too, so that makes us big.
I was going to say, I agree with that, but then there's also a line, I could be misinterpreting it wrong. It's on page 122 in the middle. it says, if only human emotion could be found in the things of this world. That's kind of confuses me a little bit.
In terms of kind of contradicts what we're
Yeah,
saying, you feel
yeah.
like a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a desire that those things could have that, or if only human emotion could
It
be
makes
found?
me feel, it makes me feel like humans are like disconnected from it.
That makes me think of how there is kind of a desire to like impose human qualities onto the natural world. I think that's at least what that means to me. Like we're looking for ourselves and let's have some.
And keep in mind that Sam's a Buddhist. So Buddhist hell is lifetime after lifetime is samsara, right? And we humans distract ourselves with our things, with our devices, with our phones, and with our other things, with our, collections of ceramic Dalmatians or golf books or whatever it might be. Poetry books. You come to my house and like, you really need all those poetry books, and it's like, if I think of something, I want to have it in my library. So I could probably get rid of a few of them, but it's hard to make that thing. So we call them possessions because they possess us. And so if we found emotion in those things, we'd be okay because we have whole houses full of, we have storage units where we have these things. Unfortunately, we can't get emotions from those. We have to get them from human beings, and they might be voting for a different presidential candidate than us. So we have to navigate that in all the other aspects of dealing with another human.
But is he not finding human emotion in the things of this world? So he might be ironic in saying that. It's like we were talking yesterday, Theodore Retke. Does anybody know that name? Seattle's poet from when? A long time ago.
Died in 1963.
Yeah. He's got a great poem. I think it's called The Geranium. And he was a chain-smoking, drunk English professor who writes about abusing this geranium. He stamps cigarettes into it. He doesn't water it. They always look like they're dying anyway, right, a geranium? And he dumps drinks into it. And, his life goes on, blah, blah, blah. His cleaning lady comes in and throws it out. And it's enough to make you weep because of the lament for that thing that he abused so much. It's a great poem. Is that what it's?
When I put her out once by the garbage pail, she looked so limp and bedraggled, so foolish and trusting, like a sick poodle or a wizened aster in late September. I brought her back in again for a new routine. Vitamins, water, and whatever sustenance seemed sensible. At the time, she'd lived so long on gin, bobble pins, half-smoked cigars, dead beer, her shriveled petals falling on the faded carpet, the stale steak grease stuck to her fuzzy leaves. Dried out, she creaked like a tulip. The things she endured, the dumb dames shrieking half the night, or the two of us alone, both seedy, me breathing booze at her, she leaning out of her pot toward the window. Near the end, she seemed almost to hear me, and that was scary. So when that snuffing cretin of a maid threw her, pot and all, into the trash can, I said nothing. But I sacked the presumptuous hag the next week. I was that lonely.
Like talking about a connection to, the plant. Like that plant becomes, I guess in an old-fashioned way, it's personified. But I think that's what poets and Buddhists and most of us do. We see the characteristics in inanimate things and
Anthropomorphized.
yeah, that's what we do. I'm not against that. I think animals feel everything. There's an argument your dog doesn't love you. That's what you think.
Depends on your dog.
Well, mine.
So I hate to interrupt our conversation, but we're running out of time, and I want to just do two things before we go. I'll try to get on camera to do this. I just want to thank Judith and Barry for being here today. So if you could, please give them a round of applause. And thank you all for participating. Continue the conversation online. We have a discussion board around this panel. So anything that's sort of still kind of sizzling that you want to talk about or you want to put out there, please do. Other people are going to be watching this, talking about this. But I just want to say thank you very much. And if we can, we will.
I have
one more announcement.
I have one thing. But we were reading tonight at 7:00. I have some flyers
My
here.
brother have
but please come back here and get on the camera too.
And then I took that.
So this was a historic course that you were part of. And this course would not have happened without the amazing work of your teacher. He has done remarkable work in seeing the vision for this, in carrying it out, and making it the quality event that it has been for me. Really a beautiful dream come true for me. It happened because of his dedication and expertise. So please give Jared a hand. You're lucky to have a guy like this as a teacher, let me tell you.
There was a lot of work.
There's a lot of work.
Anyway, and if you could help us kind of put the rooms back in order, and we'll take some things for the road. But otherwise, thank you so much, and just look online for next week's plans. I gotta shut this off.
Go to my wedding now.